Ladies and gentlemen, if we could kindly start to take our seats, please.
That's not too close to that, is it?
No.
I usually bring it over. There's a noise, a reverberation, I gotta move it over.
Well, we can move it over now so we
Yeah,
don't.
move it over a little bit. I'm gonna move a little bit. I shouldn't be near that speaker. Sometimes it gets
These are especially for you.
Do you need it plugged in yet, or are you fully charged?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. We're here today to honor the life and celebrate the life of Wendy K. Pfenninger, 57 years. The average age is 78. And we all know a lot of people who are much older than that, and some of them are doing quite well. Some of them are here in this room today. When I was a boy, I remember when my father turned 42. And my mother said, "What do you think of that?" I said, "Boy, he's old." Because to a 10-year-old, 42 is old. And as we get older, we change our minds. We change how we think. Middle age, they used to always say, is at least 10 years older than whatever you are. But nevertheless, 57 is young. But then again, we have to be grateful. Many years ago, I met a woman. She came from Romania. And she had 4 miscarriages, about 2 or 3 months into her pregnancy. And she got pregnant again. And she said to the physician, "I want this baby. I want you to guarantee me I will hold my baby alive." And the doctor said, "I can't do that." And she cried and ran out of the doctor's office. But this doctor had a heart. He was a very kind doctor, and he went right after her. He said, "Please come in." She said, "No." He says, "Please come in. Let me talk to you." And he says, "I don't know why you're having such a difficult time, but," he says, "I'll work with you. I'll do my best." So he put on her a special diet and light exercise program, had her listening to nice soft music, and she got to 3 months pregnancy like she did some of the times before, and the baby was still fine. Then 4 months, and 5 months, and 6 months, and she was quite excited. 7 months, 8 months, they got the room ready, 8.5 months, and the baby died. And she stood right here and spoke. and spoke about how she swam with her baby and sang and read and did different things. And my daughter was 16 years old, and she said, well, how can she do that? The baby died before it was born. You can't swim with your baby and all that. And I said to her, well, you see, the baby was inside of her, but it was still her baby. And she could feel the baby kicking, and it was a living person. It just wasn't born yet. And even though the baby was born dead, she had that time with her baby, and she was grateful for it. And the reason I tell you this story is because we all know 57 is too young, but we need to be grateful for those 57 years. We need to be grateful and say, well, 57. Years ago, that was considered old. It's not considered old today with modern science and medicine. But nevertheless, we're here today to honor and to celebrate Wendy for those 57 years. And we have some speakers that are going to speak. And then, if time permits, I will ask if anybody else wants to say something. Sometimes there's a story. It could be serious or funny. But if there's something that you think would give comfort to the family and that they would appreciate knowing and appreciate being told, give that little thought while these other speakers start, and then I will ask if anybody else wants to speak. I believe we're going to start with Jeff Mayberry. Is Jeff here?
I'm Jeff Mayberry. I'm Wendy's brother's best friend growing up, and that's how I know the Stair family. Not really starting out where I wanted to be. I received a email the other day from my cousin on a post from Heather. Wow, what a shock that was. I had to read it twice. I couldn't believe it. And then I had called, it was on a Sunday, I called Bob and Sally. And they had just got back from the hospital and she had passed, which was another big shock. And Heather sent me an email the other day and asked me if I'd speak for them, for Wendy. Wendy thought of me as an additional brother, and Kyle. And with Keith not being able to come just back for the funeral, she asked if I could say a couple words. So I went to task in trying to figure out what to do. First thing I did was I called my brother, and I called Keith, and we talked about Wendy. And we're like, oh, can we come up with some, anecdotes to talk about? And we really couldn't come up with something. Wendy was always the person that looked out for everyone else. She always took care of everything. Really, the last time I had seen her also was at Sally's birthday party. And she was so excited that I was there, because Keith couldn't come for that either. With medical issues, he can't fly much anymore, so he's kind of stuck. And Keith said, if you're out there, how you doing there, Stereo? Also, so this stairs in the Mayberries. I'm Jeff Mayberry, by the way. We've been great friends. I met Keith in second grade, and through the years we became best friends, and we did all kinds of traveling. Or not traveling, but we would go on ski trips. We would go on to the beach, and that's where most of our stuff we did. And they were throughout the years. Everybody moved away and moved on, and the stairs moved down to, or not moved down, but they got a trailer down in outside of Ocean City. And within the trailer, they became friends with the rest of my family through my parents. My aunt Kathy was my father's sister, and Aunt Nancy was part of, but it's my mother's sister. And we'd have parties, and that's when I get to see all of you guys. Everybody would come down and go to the bird fests, and we go to the beach because we were living in California. Keith was in California, and then Keith went to Vegas, and then Keith went to Houston. And to digress back, when Keith moved to California after his accident, my parents moved there. And my brother and I were still back on the East Coast. So Keith's West Coast mom was my mom, and Keith's mom on the East Coast was my mom. So we always called Sally our moms. And throughout that, Wendy used to call us brothers. So that's how that kind of came about. Now, I spoke with my brother, and he does much better at public speaking than I do, as you can tell. I'm not the best public speaker in the whole world, but there's about 100 things I probably forgot to say. But he sent a helpful note for me to use. So if you don't mind, I'll just read it off. Some of this. My younger brother Kyle, so he's kind of wrote this in the third person, who lives in California, wishes he could be here. I know he would love to be here. He's actually the same age as Wendy, and he could have been. And I grew up in Ancient Oaks with Wendy, Keith, and Mark. I can't remember exactly when we became friends, but it had to be the early 60s or late 60s, early 70s. I started playing Little League baseball with Keith. My dad and Bob would coach together, and Kyle would hang out with Mark and Wendy. Soon enough, we became close friends, and we're hanging out with the stairs all the time. Wendy quickly became the little sister that we never had, without the fighting part. I'm sure that Mark and Keith can contest to that. In hindsight, it makes perfect sense. If I could find my glasses, it'd be better. Getting old is bad. There we go. Wendy ended up being a pet person as soon as she would always have to, okay. Wendy was always a bit of a pet person. When we were younger, they had a little terrier. Misty? Way to go, Kyle. And I would come over, and Misty would be very nice to me. She loved me. My brother would come over to the stairs house, and Misty would go nuts. And then here comes Wendy. Wendy would have to come over and calm the dog down. And she did a heck of a job. She did a good job. But that dog did not like my brother for some reason. He never stopped barking. being 4 years older than Wendy, I mean, I don't have all that much contact with her. I just know that she always, and when we were older, that she always said I was the brother that kind of probably replaced the absence of Keith. So. Our families would go on vacation together often, and I fondly remember the one ski trip to Killington, Vermont, when we stayed at the Whiffletree condominiums. Thinking back on all those trips, Wendy must have had been a real saint, having to deal with all 4 knucklehead boys of us, which I'm surprised, sure surprised no one. When I was thinking about what I was going to say today, I decided to reach out to Kyle since he knew Wendy better than me. And while we were reminiscing, we both came to the conclusion that we never saw Wendy angry or be mean to anyone. Keith and or Kyle may either argue, but that was the kind of person Wendy was. Kind-hearted, happy, and loving. I think everyone wants to live their life in a way that when you pass, you want people to have nice things to say about you. Wendy took it to the next step, where saying nice things will be very easy while not really being able to say anything bad, which is a very special person. Unfortunately, too often God takes the good ones from us way before their time. And this is definitely the case with Wendy. My heart aches for you and all, but maybe there's some solace in knowing the pets in heaven have a new friend. God bless. Thank you.
Very nice.
So through modern technology, Zoom has come about. And if we were all very smart, we would have invested in that right before the pandemic, and we would all be retired and living in Italy or someplace. But we are rich in a different sense today because we're able to hear and see somebody from far away. So at this time, Andy Caverley will be joining us on Zoom. So, Andy, it's all up to you.
This, I hope everyone can hear me.
Talk a little louder if you can. Try that.
Is that, can everyone hear me okay?
Now it's good. It's very good now.
Wonderful, wonderful. If you ask Wendy to describe me in one word, it would be loud. So that's a positive that we have here. My name is Andy Caverley. I'm Wendy's daughter Heather's brother-in-law. I'm not sure formally what that makes me, but as we all know, Wendy was so loving and caring that it didn't matter what I was. Anyone who had the privilege of crossing her path or getting to know her was absolutely considered family to Wendy. To me, she was like another mother at times, a cool aunt at times, and even a fun big sister at times. I had the privilege of knowing her for almost 22 years. Wendy lit up every room and every place that she was ever in. She was kind. She was funny. She had perhaps one of the best laughs that I've ever heard. Among my many fond memories of Wendy were game nights. Wendy loved games. She was always such a great sport, no matter what the contest was. She had the best banter and comments while trying frantically to make something out of clay in the game Cranium. One particularly fun evening was we played a game of Dancing with the Stars. It was actually a video game. They actually placed pads on the floor, and the dancers were required to follow the correct steps or make the right moves. And Wendy was an absolute blast with that. And as I recall, through a random drawing, her and I were partners. And I think we won that evening. No thanks to my contribution at all. One of the best, though, down here in South Florida, there was a great game of Can Jam that took place. Now, Can Jam is a frisbee game. You throw the frisbee at a cylindrical target. Your partner helps out on the other end. It does require some agility. So the pairings of that game were Wendy and my mother, Sandy, against Ed and my father, Andy. And, honestly, I don't remember who won. But let's be honest. We all know who won. I'm pretty sure that Ed and Dad pulled it off. Had Wendy and my mom won, we would have never heard the end of it. Barely had that happen. But she was such a wonderful sport with that, and with any games that we ever played. It was definitely a passion of hers. Wendy was incredibly supportive of all her friends and family. I personally experienced this with countless golf matches between Bob, Adam, my dad, and I. And we would return from our golf outing, and Wendy would find me immediately, Sally right behind her, and say, "So, did you finally beat the old man?" Meaning Bob. And I would hang my head and I would say, "Not this time," or "I was close." And Wendy would put her arm around me and say, "You'll get him next time. Don't worry." So Bob, someday, and Wendy will surely know. Above anything else, Wendy's world was her family. From her kids, Heather, Matt, their families, her grandchildren, her husband Ed, parents, Bob, Sally, Ashley, who I've grew to know over the years, and so many more. Wendy just lived for her family. And that extended so far beyond. Until I moved to Florida, she attended every birthday or major function of my kids, which is just a testament to the extent of Wendy's love. Certainly one of her favorite events yearly was her Christmas breakfasts. Any and all were invited to those. As my nuclear family migrated to Florida and I was left behind, I was always and still invited every year to Christmas breakfast. And with Wendy, it wasn't so much an invitation as it was an expectation. You are family and you will be here. did an amazing job taking up the Christmas breakfast mantle all the years that she was in Florida. And Heather and I had a funny exchange this past year. She, of course, was back in Pennsylvania. And she said, wow, this is the first Christmas morning in, so many years that was stress-free for her. Of course, because Wendy hosted it this year. And Heather, I really do hope that you keep up your mom's wonderful tradition. It was always amazing, and it was always very special. So I hope that you continue that in her honor. Wendy's left us far too soon, and there's nothing that anyone could have done. But we keep her spirit alive in our hearts and our memories, and we'll be sure that her legacy continues, especially for the young grandkids. Wendy walked this earth as an angel, and now walks amongst all of the angels, smiling, laughing, and surely spreading the joy that she shared with all of us. And I want to especially thank Heather and Matt for giving me this opportunity, because Wendy was very important to me as well. Wendy, you're loved and you're missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody that's here as a member of the family first that would like to come up and say anything? Is there anyone else here that would like to share a memory with everybody? Everybody's shy. Okay, all right. Well, if you change your mind, just raise your hand and get my attention, and I'll let you speak. If you didn't know Wendy and you came here and you looked at these photographs, I think you could pretty much figure out very easily that big smile that's there is, I think, indicative of a good person. They used to say a picture tells 1,000 words, and I believe that that's true. If you're like most people, you have a lot of pictures on your phone today. And I suggest to people, if something happens to your phone, you might lose those pictures, print them, because one day you might wish they were printed because somehow they got lost. But I do believe that adage of a picture telling 1,000 words is absolutely true. I mean, you see dancing, holding a grandchild, birthday cake, smiling with little children, and feeding a child. If you see people that have their pictures are, I'm on all these vacations by themselves, sometimes I get the sense if there's too many of those pictures that it's all about me. And I believe with Wendy, it wasn't about her. It was about you, her family first, her friends. And that's why we have so many people here today. She was a giver and not a taker. And of course, how do you attribute that? I attribute it to parents, how you're raised. My father used to say, before you marry someone, get to know her family. If they're all crazy, that's what you're getting. If they're mean, maybe that's what you're getting. Study them. But then we're also a product of our environment as well, who we hang around with. And And sometimes it's also personal choices. And I didn't know her like you. I just barely knew her. But from what I heard everybody talking today when you came in, it was just glowing. What a good person. What a kind person. One that was concerned about elderly, children, and everybody in between, concerned about animals and their welfare. I meet a lot of people. I've done over 18,000 funerals in my life. I don't even believe it myself. Today we had 3. I buried my best friend today. His name was George Rad. He was a realtor in Allentown. Terrific guy, terrific guy. And he had an adage, is what you do in life is how you're going to be remembered. That's true. If you steal and you cheat and you lie, that's how you're going to be remembered. And if you're kind and you're considerate and forgiving and humble, that's how you're going to be remembered. And you know, not only how we are remembered is how do children learn more than their teachers in school? From their friends, but mostly from their parents. Some of the kids I went to school with, I'm 70 years old. And you know what? Many of them, when I see them now, I met them in kindergarten, they're the same type of person. They're just older, for the most part. So where did we learn it? We learn it from our parents and sometimes grandparents. And I think it's a wonderful thing, is that we're blessed with good parents, like Wendy was. It's a tribute to them. And then when you see it passed down to your grandchildren, that's even better. There's a parable that's too long to read, but it's called, maybe you can Google it when you go home, but I'm going to paraphrase it. It's called The Parable of Motherhood. It's by a lady called Temple Bailey. But to make a long parable short, let me just paraphrase it for you. There was a young woman that had young children, and it was a beautiful day, and they had some good food, and they went out in the middle, and nothing could have been better. The weather, how beautiful it was, the children were laughing, they enjoyed this food, and the mother looked up in the skies and said, nothing is better than this. My children are safe, and they're happy, and they're healthy. What could be better? But through life, different things happened which weren't so great. Bad weather, point of being scared, a point of being afraid. And each day when this happened, the mother looked up to the heavens and said, today is better than the last. The one day the path was dark, and the children shook with fear and cold. And she said, don't be afraid. I am with you. You'll be all right. And she said, today is better than the last because I've taught my children courage. Then another day came ahead, and there was a hill, and the children were tired and felt they couldn't do it. And the mother says, no, you can do it. I'm with you. I'll help you. And that day she said, today is better than the last. For today I've taught my children fortitude in the face of hardship. Yesterday I gave them courage. Today I've given them strength. And other things that came, which we look at as not pleasant. And you would say it's a terrible day. But you see, it's terrible in a way, but in another way, it's another learning experience. And when the mother became old and feeble and frail, and the children took care of her, and she breathed her last breaths, she says, the end is better than the beginning, because now my children can go on without me, and I know they'll be okay. Well, in this case, Wendy was not an old woman. She had a full life, but it wasn't long enough, where she could have experienced more things. But in a sense, that parable still makes sense. Because look at her children. Look at how they become strong and able to do things. And they can thank their mothers and fathers, as all of you could. And maybe your grandparents and other people taught you how to do the right thing. In my experience of those 18,000, I had people that died in Vietnam, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. I've had every experience you can imagine. My son laid right there from a car accident. I've had many accidents. I've had, unfortunately, many homicides and suicides and natural death, both young and old. And all we can do is learn by it. And what I've learned, and I hope to share this with you, is that we have to take a deep breath sometimes and say, how can I be a better person? How can I be a better father or mother or son or daughter or friend or brother or sister? How can I help both my family and the strangers? How can I do the right thing and be an example to others? My friend George, who I buried this morning, was a realtor, and sometimes two business people will argue because they're both want a piece of the pie, and they want to gain the edge over their competition. George didn't do that. He tried to help young realtors, even if they worked in another office. He taught children sports. But whatever we do, whatever it is, we should do it with the right intention. Because we could gain a lot of money, and we can lose it at a casino, you can lose it, someone stole it from you, or maybe you went in a nursing home and everything you saved is gone. So money is something that we need to survive on, but it should not be our God. It should be something that we use for a good purpose. I believe, from what everybody told me about Wendy, that she had her values in order. She knew what was right and what was wrong. She knew how to treat people. Because I found the better you treat people, the better people will treat you. There's exceptions. No, you can't please everybody. But if we do the right thing and we have a smile on our face, look at that smile. Look at that big smile. That's, to me, says it all. She was a kind and good and loving person. Whether she's rich or poor, it doesn't matter. It's a tragedy that she passed. We know that. Unfortunately, there's so many of those. It's a tragedy. But we should also realize that this is also a possibility in our lives, that we might not live long or we might live old. Whatever it is, Well, won't know till near the end. So let's make the ride. Let's make the trip. Let's make our way in life the best we can. I want to read a poem to you. It's called She Is Gone. You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that she will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that she has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her and only that she is gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what she would want. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. I'd like to read to you the 23rd Psalm, and if anyone chooses to read it along, you may do so. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The reason that's read at so many funerals is because it was written by King David upon the death of his son, that as much as he was hurting and grieving, he took strength in God, the God that created her or him, whatever the case may be. We don't understand why someone's taken so young. Why did Betty White die at 99? Why didn't she live to be 100? We have to accept what happens and be grateful. We're not all going to be 99. And if we're in bad condition, maybe we don't want to live to be 99. I don't know. I do a lot of Jewish funerals. And the sage is right that death, as difficult as it is better than a lifetime of pain and suffering. Sometimes a person through medical science can be cured of something and live a full life. And sometimes they're just kept alive, barely. So I don't know what her future would have been. But if it would have been years or decades of pain and suffering, it was easier for her to go to her God. One last chance. Does anybody want to say anything? Yes. Okay. I talked somebody into it.
You just didn't see my hand the first time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They should know I'm the loud mouth. They would know I had to speak. I don't even need the microphone probably, but I have been friends with Heather, our whole group over there, probably since we were, I don't even know, this big, very small. And I think my sister said it best. Wendy was always the cool mom. She was the mom that you wanted to be around, the mom you wanted to hang out with. She was the one that when you showed up to the house, you'd sit down at the table and she wanted to know all the gossip. She wanted to know who you were dating, how long you were dating them, were they cute? She wanted to see pictures of them. Because we always had sleepovers with Heather. And they were always at Heather's house because cool mom, she's who we wanted to be with. And I remember being in high school her opening the fridge, and it was the first time I ever saw boxed wine. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. I'm like, what? She was like, it just never runs out. You have wine for weeks. So it was always fun growing up and going to their house for sleepovers and hanging out and being with Wendy, because as you said, the pictures, full of life, full of fun, full of laughs. And I know she was always there for you guys as your mom. She was the ultimate mom. She was there for every occasion, never missed anything. But I think what no one mentioned is what an incredible wife she has been to Ed. She was there through every up, down, medical, treatment, hospital, you name it. She was there. She was strong. She kept this family together through everything. I don't think anyone's mentioned that, how great of a wife she was been. I know it's hard to overlook because she was an amazing mom and grandma, but she was a really kick-butt wife. So I just thought someone needs to stand up here and mention just how much fun. There was no laughing going on. If she was here, there'd be laughing and there'd be smiles. And I just thought that needed to be said because that's who she was. And she was a great aunt, too. She was there for everyone. So that just needs to be said for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. Wonderful. What I found when you go to a funeral, sometimes you learn something that you can apply to your own lives. I also found that many times when you go to a funeral, besides coming here for Wendy, sometimes we come for another reason. And that reason is sometimes there's somebody that passed away in your family recently or a long time ago that you miss. I'm looking at maybe some of the older people here who maybe your parents died 10, 20, 30 years ago, and you miss them. And you know how much it means when you come to support someone because somebody supported you in the past. And sometimes the things young people remember their parents saying, you say, I'm never going to say that to my children. Well, you find out you are. You find out you are. Some of the things you didn't believe in, you believe it now. I'm going to read you a song. I'm doing you a big favor by not singing it. Frank Sinatra was known for it. And I think there's a little correlation here that everybody in their life does things their own way. And I'm so glad you spoke because, everyone, the husband, the children, the parents, everybody in here, whether you're family or not family, had a meaningful relationship with her. And we all do things their own way. So let me read you these things, because sometimes when you hear a song, you just hear the melody, and you don't listen to the words necessarily. And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway. And more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each chartered course, each careful step along the byway. And more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried. I've had my fill, my share of losing. And now as tears subside, I find it all so amusing. To think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me, I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he is not. To say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. Let the record show I took the blows and did it my way. I think Wendy did it her way, and her way was good. No question about it. Her way was good. That's why there's so many people here today, because so many people care. She touched so many lives. If there wasn't this cold weather and we didn't have the COVID, this room wouldn't be big enough. She was and always will be remembered. She will be remembered by her family. She'll be remembered by her friends. And as you, especially her children, get older, you're going to even appreciate it more. I did when my mother died. I appreciate her more. I wish I could have told her more when she was alive. But just you always think you have another day. You always think you have plenty of time. And then one day, the time runs out. But I'm going to end with this story, the true story. And this relates to my family, but it relates to you, everyone here. When my grandfather died in 1974, I was a student in college in Pittsburgh. And my mother said, "You need to come home, Grandpa's dying. We have him in our living room. He's not going to live long." Now, this was an electrician at the Bethlehem Steel, 6 foot tall, 220 pounds, could fix anything. If I wouldn't have known that was my grandfather, I never would have known who it was. He was 75 pounds. Can you picture 6 foot tall, 75 pounds? It was skin and bone. He had cancer. And he waited too long to get anything done. And he had surgery and radiation, and he lived longer. But he suffered greatly. So when he died in my mother's arms, I thought, what a relief. I hated seeing him suffer. It's just awful. But my mother didn't feel that way. She wanted him to live no matter what. So she gave him CPR over and over and over and over again. And oh my God. I thought this isn't going to work. And I let her go some more. He was gone. And I finally said, "Mother, he's gone." And I held her and she cried. And after a little while, I heard a noise. I looked behind me, my grandfather had his eyes open. I thought, what? The moment I told her he was gone, she had just revived him. But he was too weak to open his eyes. So I felt, here's my one chance. I can talk to someone who died. I know he was dead because he told me he was dead. Here's my one chance. I said, "What did you say?" Now, what I'm about to tell you is not meant to be a story about my grandfather. I believe this is what happened to your wife, and your mother, and your daughter, and your loved one and friend, Wendy. He said, "I went through this tunnel, and there was a bright light. At the end of the bright light, there was my mother, my father, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, everybody that died years ago. They were all there. My mother was even holding her baby that died from the influenza like 100 some years ago. She was holding her baby. I said, "What did everybody look like? Did they look old and feeble and decrepit?" He said, "No, they all look great. They look perfect." I said, "What did the surroundings look like?" I see my grandfather, my grandmother used to go to all the national parks. And they went to some of the beautiful things in the United States, Niagara Falls, the Rio Grande, whatever. That was neat. They went to all those places. And he says, "Nothing can compare with what I saw." And then I saw your mother, my mother, pounding on his chest, breathing in his mouth. And he says, "All my pain came back." And my mother started crying. And then he looked at my mother. He says, "When I die again," because he could only whisper, he was so weak, "When I die again, let me go." Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that's where Wendy is. She's at a place that's more beautiful than here. She's with her family. and you will see her again. And to the rest of you who miss your loved ones, you will see them again. I'm just not going to take a chance. I'm going to try to be the best person I can be because I want to go to heaven and not hell. And I don't know anything about hell. All I know is I want to go to heaven because hell doesn't sound too good. And I want to be there with them. So maybe today is a little bit of a reminiscing and celebration of her life, a little bit of mourning because we don't want her to leave, and maybe it's a little bit of a teaching experience so that we can be maybe more like Wendy, and we can, when we close our eyes, we will be with her and our loved ones in a paradise called heaven. I will now conclude with the Lord's Prayer, and that will conclude the services. If you wish to join me, you may. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our services. The family would like to thank you all for coming. Thank you for the flowers, the cards, if you made a donation in her memory, whatever you might have done. Thank you for being her friend or relative during life, and thank you for being a supporter today on this sad day. We thank you all for coming. This concludes our services. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you so much.